All right. It's not technically 120 yet, which is when I said I would put this up. So I'm not gonna, really start talking yet. All right. It's got to be like 5 seconds away from 120. Come on. 120. There it is. Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. Um, so lame. Today I'm going to be talking about how to make a two-step beat, UK garage style, but more specifically, how to make sounds and music in the vein of artists like Burial or Synkro, more so like Burial. Burial, for those of you who don't know, is a UK artist that made his seminal album in 2007 called Untrue by Burial, which did a lot of YouTube crate digging, YouTube sampling, and putting those over a two-step beat, and really making one of the most sublimely dark and kind of despairing electronic albums of the 2000s. It really affected me a lot in terms of how I wanted to make music. So I'm going to first play a few Burial songs, kind of go over the elements of a Burial song, and then open up the project file for this new track that I'm working on, just for fun, not really for any specific purpose, other than just showing you how to do it. So I'll start with Burial, Shell of Light. Again, this is off his album Untrue from 2007, and the record label on that is Hyperdub. So when you take a look first at a two-step beat, you'll see this kind of fishbone-like quality to the drum rhythms. Now, from my understanding, I believe both Shell of Light and certainly the other song that I have here, Untrue, were not made with a traditional digital audio workstation. They were made with Sony Acid Pro, which is an audio editor like Audacity, but it is definitely not a DAW, meaning he did this all off the grid, which kind of gives its cool swing. But I'm just going to shut up and just play the song. Okay, that's a little bit of Shell of Light. We're going to move on to Untrue.
To the way I feel inside, and it's all because you lied, and it's all because you lied.
Okay, so I mean, really the first few things that you can pick up is there's this very interesting drum rhythm that if you're not from the UK or haven't listened, and I'm obviously not from the UK, or haven't listened to this type of music, you really won't recognize the drum rhythm at all. Or you'll think it's very strange, whether for people, people from the UK find this drum rhythm very, very familiar as a lot of their pop music, their music out of the 90s. Their R&B is really more in the form of what's called garage music, which has that type of drum rhythm and is considered hip-hop in some sense. So that drum rhythm may seem very strange to you, and if you listen to it, right, so you got this 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's got this like hang beat at the end. I mean, it's 4/4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? It is 4/4, but it's got this kind of odd swing to it that really almost makes it feel like 7/8, where it kind of like jumps back at the last second. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, And if you listen to the kick drums, right, it's boom, boom, and then there's like a sub. It's not really the kick. It's like kick, kick, sub. And then if you listen to the snare, 2, 4, 2, 4. And then in between those, there's these little percussives. That little pop right there. And then if you listen to the hi-hat, it's almost like a mixture between an open hat and a closed hi-hat, just played on the offbeat. It's got a lot of kind of metallic timbre to it. That could be a hi-hat. It could be just car keys. It could be some sort of Foley of some kind. And then finally, if you listen kind of besides that beat or through the beat, you'll hear this just sustained kind of almost distorted pad sound. In fact, too, you'll hear wah right there. And then over on your right side of your headphones, you'll hear some sort of other pad. So it may sound like when you listen to it, it's something very simple, but it's actually pretty complicated. Then the other, so we've got the two-step beat, which we'll go over. We've got that pad sound, kind of sadder chords. It's not even really a chord, but it comes off like a chord. Then you'll notice the pitch down vocals. Right? So those are most likely pitch down female vocals. In fact, they are. It's Beyonce, actually. Beyonce Knowles. Pitch down. So, and if we go back to Shallow Light, right, that could be a man or a female. I don't really know, but it's a pitch down, soulful vocal in both cases, right? So let's move on how to actually make this type of stuff. All right. So I'm going to go to the Burial two-step beat. Don't save. And we're going to take a little bit of listen to my production, and then we're going to break it down, kind of the elements of how each part is made. With the hardest, almost certainly being the actual construction of the drums themselves. In fact, I started this project the other day, but I took it from a project that I'd done a year or two ago and replaced some of the samples. So, if you keep the MIDI the same, you can replace the sample and get that same type of effect. So, we've got boom. Trigger these vocal samples. So you've got that kind of burial kind of feel. So let's talk about where it comes from, and let's break down the hardest part first. Okay, so right, this is going to look pretty confusing. So let's solo it out. We've got 124 beats per minute, and let's talk about everything first. So let's just talk about the kick drum pattern. Okay, so kick drum first. We've got a really subby kick, right? And I'm in a 30-second grid right now, and you'll notice that even on that 30-second grid, no, those actually are pretty quantized to the beat. It's really that note that should be a 16th, right? That if it was a normal beat, that you're really doing in a 30-second, so it swings a second later. Okay? So then we're going to take the percussion sound, and by the way, this is what it sounds like to the metronome. Right, so that's that little skip there. All right. Same thing here. We've got it quantized here on the 2, and then you've got that 30-second slip, and again over here. So on the 1/4 and the 2/4, it ends a 30-second earlier. It's kind of like a snare, but not quite. It's more or less acting like the snare. All right. Then we're we're going to bring in the hi-hat. Right? And so if I zero that out, and sorry, those got, that is truly just an offbeat hi-hat, okay? All right, so then if we take this closed hat, it's this weird little hi-hat thing, and I've got it panning, it feels like, around the head. And again, we're just dealing with 30-second swings here. Put that together with the open hi-hat. That's where you're getting that little shuffle from that you hear in a lot of UK house, right? Take that together with the perk, or the snare, and the kick. All right, we're going to add in one additional percussion. It's that same percussion. All right. Okay, and then finally, this little snap sound. Or it's a snap, I think I pitched down, maybe? Yeah, pitch down 10 steps. And again, that more or less, well, it's not really lining up with anything other than maybe this percussion here. Yeah, it's lining up with the snare, right? But not everywhere. So it's pretty complicated, right? So that's the two-step beat right there. Now, as far as processing on here, I have it to a drum bus here, and then a pretty serious EQ to take off some of those highs, and then I have it rolled off a little bit more with an auto filter. I see how thin it sounds on the top without that, and then I got a glue compressor, kind of gluing it all together, and then I've made the width of it much more mono. You don't want all that stereo drums. It just doesn't work with the genre. All right, so that's the drums. Yeah, as far as a learning curve, I hadn't made anything like that before I made this drum beat a year ago, and I replaced a lot of the samples for this particular track. But that was a big learning curve for me. Okay, so then the chords. So I took a preset from Ableton called House to Go, which does a third, a seventh, and an octave down. And so that would have sounded like this. Right, not quite right. So I put a C minor scale, which is also a preset in Ableton Live, scale effect on it. And that's locking it into C minor scale. Okay. The actual sound sounds like so. That is a Serum preset called PD D-Pad 2. I don't remember if this is... Yeah, it seems like it's a preset from Serum. That's a very burial sounding pad. Then I put a bandpass filter on it. And then a nice little compressor on there. And then you're making sure that each note ends a quarter note early each time. All right. So together with the drums. Okay. Now that's just one part of the sound. The next part of the sound is going to be the actual bass note. Same thing, you're having that stop a quarter note early. So together. And then one additional layer that's just a complete sub. Okay. Same thing, ending a quarter note early. Play all those together. Okay. All right, the final thing you're going to do, with the beat at least, is I found some Foley of some car keys. And what I'm having happen with the car keys is every quarter note, I am turning the volume completely off. Or every other quarter note. Full stop. Okay? So then you have... get that burial kind of sound. Now, the next part is the vocals. Now, the vocals is the hardest part for me to do. Number one, I'm not a female. Number two, while my voice is somewhat soulful, it maybe not the most soulful voice in the world. So here's what I did first. I have an instance of Nectar 3. I key locked it into G minor, which the track I believe is, or it's one of the parallel scales. And so I locked that in, and then here's what this sounds like. Or that's not the one I think I was trying to use. Let's see. Let's do Love You then.
If I love you.
Let me take that off. If I love you. Okay. If I love you. If I love you. That's what my voice sounds like by itself. If I love you. Band pass. If I love. And then on Nectar 3. Okay. Take this off for a second. If I love you. Then what we added in is what's called formant shifting. So right now that formant is at -7 semitones. If I put that to 0, you're going to hear more or less my original voice with a little bit of additional processing. If I love you. Okay, if I go to -7 on the semitone formant shifting.
If I love you.
Starting to sound a little bit more like burial. I then printed that onto the next track. And then I did some additional EQ to take a lot of the lows out. Reverb. I completely put that vocal in mono. Then I compressed the vocal and then gated it so any noise that wasn't me singing, any sort of background noise was gated out. And then I did a little bit of additional EQ work to make sure, and compression. So there's serial compression having here and a limiter.
If I love you.
So now it sounds pretty clean and starting to sound somewhat like maybe what a female vocal or a soulful male vocal would sound like pitched down. Then I've got a different take.
You don't know what you mean to me.
And again, that gating is because you can hear a little bit of those drums while I was recording in headphones slip through. All right, so then all together. And then I set these up on my keyboard, MIDI mapped each one of these to my Akai keyboard. So my little guy here. So oops. We'll go here. And pretty cool. So that sounds, I think, as far as my ear is concerned, fairly authentic. So I'm going to hit a little bit of recording here. Now, the last thing I did was I made this synth in Serum and then printed it to audio with a lot of delay on it. And I've got this little thing. Now, this isn't quite, a burial. This is kind of mixing it in with a little bit of like UK drum and bass sounds as well. Kind of making it more mod style than just specifically burial. All right, so let's record. 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, I'm going to start it out without the vocal. So I'm going to hit duplicate here, and I'm going to remove it there. So I'm just going to do it my own way here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, that was a horrible idea. And there are many in life. All right, let's try that again. All right. Let's see how long that was. Yeah, about 3 minutes. So, I mean, that's about how long a track like that would be. If I would make it, obviously I would go back and I would probably, edit a bunch of this. I don't know if I feel like, oops, no, you don't want to get rid of that. I need that. Probably do a little bit of more EQ work here, just get some of those unpleasant frequencies out of the way. Cool. That's it for today's stream. I'm going to be uploading this on YouTube as well. I'm obviously going to leave it up here. But yeah, feel free to ask me any questions about this. I had a lot of fun making this. And I just think that just the two-step beat in general is just such a cool drum rhythm. And it's really cool to kind of challenge yourself and try to make something like this. So hit me up on Twitch, YouTube, wherever, if you have any questions about it. Until next time, I'll see you soon.